What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Facts and Stats. This is now episode 95. If you are watching this episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I do have a guest here with me. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Charlotte. I am the founder of Let's Talk Knicks on Twitter, the only female-led New York Knicks fan page on Twitter with Twitter Spaces. We live tweet games, full coverage on New York Knicks games. We have live spaces post-game after every single New York Knicks game. Die-hard Knicks fan from New York City.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. That already answers my second question. And so you became a Knicks fan because you're originally from New York, correct?
Yes, so my brother, when I was younger, I would always want to spend time with my brother, but the only thing on when I would come into his room were Knicks games, and it was Jared Jeffries and David Lee running around when the Knicks weren't really that great, of course, and I really found a love for basketball. I played basketball my entire life, but Knicks have really been a passion. In 2020, during COVID, I was really bored, and I said to myself, why not I get something to do with my time? And I founded Let's Talk Knicks on Twitter. I actually did not, and people didn't know I was a female because it's such a male-dominated industry, especially on Twitter. There's barely any women in basketball. So I conceived my identity for about a year. I just was like, no, I don't want it. But then when Spaces came, I had to, because, I don't have a deep voice like a man. So everyone's like, I'm getting a little fishy. So I came out as a female, and it was best thing ever because I got so much support, and I've led so many females to actually want to start doing Twitter and doing Twitter Spaces. And now we've grown, and we have this platform called Knicks Spaces, which is on Twitter at Knicks Spaces, and we host spaces all the time. Everyone's welcome. So yeah.
I love to hear it. That's similar trajectory for me. Facts and Stats came in the same exact year, almost the same exact way. My mom always told me that I needed to start a podcast or talk about basketball or just sports in general. And that year happened. I was in the house and I was brainstorming names, and then Facts and Stats came about. It was still a super small thing at that point, and then similar to you, Spaces happened, and now Facts and Stats are starting to take off when it comes to spaces and just people, love the community that I built. So thank you so much for coming on. I definitely remember around the time where my Heat played your Knicks in the playoffs. A lot of Knicks fans were coming into Facts and Stats, and I think that's the first time I seen your at name, and then I also seen you guys hosting spaces. I know. Don't do you work with Stan?
Yes, we work with Stan. Yes,
yeah.
Stan and I co-founded Knicks Spaces together. We host the biggest post-game show after every single game. Yeah, there's some couple other smaller ones that we support, but we consider ourselves the number one post-game show with everyone at Knicks Spaces.
Yeah, and Stan is a great guy. He reached out to me, and he was supporting everything about Facts and Stats over the last couple of months. Gave me a call, and that's when to give Stan his flowers if you watch this video. Shout out to you, Stan. I am now working with Charlotte today. Charlotte, today we're going to talk everything Knicks, and I think you're the great person to do that with. I'm glad I reached out to you. More so past, present, and future. More so on the present and future side. So we're going to start with the past a little bit, though. You say you started off with the Jared Jeffrey and the David Lee and that type of era. Talk about when Carmelo Anthony came and lit the Garden on fire. How did you feel about the years where Carmelo was there when he got to the playoffs, and then towards the end of his career, they're not so,
The Carmelo years were magical. There's no other way to put it. The Knicks for years have been trying, even now, have been trying to trade for a star, and there's never been a star that has wanted to embrace the New York media, fans, everyone that goes, when you play in New York City, it's one of the biggest markets in the NBA, and there's a lot of pressure on you, of course. Carmelo, while some might criticize the trade, the Knicks might have given too much. The Knicks got a bondified trade that they could actually get a star here that could put them over the top. There's Amari Stoudemire, Carmelo Anthony, Tyson Chandler, that whole group. Yes, they did lose in 2013 to the Indiana Pacers in the second round, which was heartbreaking in Indiana. But the passion and what Carmelo brought to New York, it shows that you can turn around a fan base and get people behind you. When Julius Randle in 2020 led the Knicks to the 4th seed against the Atlanta Hawks, yes, they didn't win in the playoffs, but the way that stars, if you actually embrace it and actually win in New York, it changes your whole career. I've said it on Spaces, I've said it multiple times on Twitter that if any star brings, whether it's Joel Embiid in the future or someone like that, if you bring a championship to the New York Knicks, you will be a top NBA player, in the world in history, I think, because the Knicks have had a championship drought for over 50 years. It's a big drought. But I think Carmelo brought something special, whether it was that crazy game against Michael Kidd Gilchrist in the Charlotte Hornets or in the playoffs on Christmas games. He was the number one option. He embraced it. There's a lot of pressure on him. Yes, he had ups and downs, but so does every single player. But the Carmelo years were absolutely magical. They were so fun to watch. I was sad to see Wilson Chandler go, Timothy Mozgov, and a pick that turned into Jamal Murray, who's now an NBA champion. I think Carmelo Anthony brought stardom and actual just stability for a couple years before it started going downhill. And I still think that Carmelo should be playing in the NBA, but who knows?
No, yeah, I agree. Shout out to Carmelo for one, like you said it right on the nose, embracing the city of New York and making it like his own. We all know he's born in Baltimore. He represents Baltimore, but he also embraced the New York Knicks culture and the city of New York in general, just New York in general. Um, but just the last 20 years have been tough. Maybe even longer than that as a Knicks fan, and you guys try to get. I remember you guys wanted Zion. If you guys had the number one pick, you ended up with R.J. Barrett. We're gonna have a question. We're gonna have a conversation around R.J. Barrett. You guys had a vision for Kyrie, Katie, and Zion. I remember that. Donovan Mitchell. We may have a conversation around Donovan Mitchell today as well. So it's been tough. I remember in Carmelo's last 3 seasons, you guys didn't crack 40 wins. I think in the last 10 years, you guys only won 40 times, 2 times. So it's been tough as a Knicks fan, and we're going to sort of kind of jump forward to where you guys signed a guy in Julius Randle. I think you guys also gave him an extension. Did you guys give him an extension recently?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you signed Julius Randle in I think the 1920 season, the 2021
Yep.
season, which you just pointed on. He got you guys to the playoffs. He was most improved player, All Star, All NBA, All NBA. Great season that he had that year for you guys. And unfortunately, obviously, Trey Young happened. Let's talk about that season right there with Julius Randle before we get to the Jalen Brunson and so forth.
So with that season, when you have a starting point guard of Alfred Payton and RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, and if Julius Randle just played a little bit better in the playoffs and did not completely crumble, and understand when you are in the post and you are being defended by DeAndre Hunter and being double teamed by Bogey and anyone, if you just passed it out instead of just turning it over and understanding that you can trust your teammates, I still think that the Knicks could have won that series. I think it really came down to the Knicks. Yeah, people want to say Trey Young shut down New York. He took over New York. He's wearing New York shoes on Madison Square Gardens. But I think really what it comes down to is that Julius Randle did not show up. RJ Barrett did not play to where we thought he would play in the playoffs. And the Knicks just did not have enough talent to beat that Hawks team. If you look at the roster, you had the starting point guard of Alfred Payton, who's now, I think, out of the league.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of fans were calling for him to be benched. I was calling him to be benched because it obviously wasn't working. And every time, I think there's a stat that every time Alfred Payton was on the floor, it was like a negative plus minus when he was on the floor. That's not how a starting point guard should play. I think Alfred Payton should have not started the playoffs, but it was ridiculous. I wanted to see Emmanuel Quickly or someone like that.
And quickly, big Emmanuel quickly fan. I love that he was in the running for the sixth man of the year last year. Uh, that season was tough, but I do think that Julius at times, I still think his body language was a little off, but at times
Yes.
he that season in particular embraced being the New York Knicks best player. And I think it takes time to sort of kind of, not even time, a lot of patience as well to embrace the city of New York and the crowd and all the yelling and all the backlash that comes with not performing up to their standards. Their standards is different from the average person on the outside standards, if you ask me. But this past offseason, you guys made another step in the direction, if you ask me, when it comes to, I believe Jalen Brunson's contract was a 4-year, $100 million contract, or 105.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. incentives, but those incentives are, if he makes an all-star, which I think he should have been an all-star last season, all NBA, making any of those, teams or even a championship.
Yeah. So his
So
first season. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
it's like the Josh Hart contract. People were fighting on Twitter. It's a 91. You're paying Josh Hart, a role player, for 91 million. But then we really look at it, and Fred Katz reports that it's unlikely incentive. So the Knicks have some of the best contracts in the NBA. If you look at their their cap.
Yeah, I agree with you. Jalen Brunson, first year, they averaged 24-6, led you guys to the playoffs alongside of Randall and RJ and Quickly and many more. You guys went into the first round and played the Cavaliers. This is a series that, on the outside looking in, many people did have the Cavaliers winning. Me personally, I had the Knicks winning. I want to get your thoughts on that series real quick. Were you surprised on how it went, and what was the biggest thing in that series to you that swung, which you guys ultimately winning?
I always had the Knicks winning in 6. I said it from the beginning, and everyone thought it was crazy because everyone thought it was going 7. I was shocked that Darius Garland did not play as well. He kind of faltered and he needed help. Donovan Mitchell needed help. You got Jared Allen making comments. Maybe the lights were too bright in Madison Square Garden. They obviously were scared. The Knicks Jalen Brunson is an animal.
Yeah.
He just completely took over the series. Julius Randle, yes, he's dealing with it. Also, a lot of the Knicks players were injured. Jalen Brunson had a bad ankle. Julius Randle was injured. And even RJ got beaten up a little bit, and the bench took some depth. But I think I was not shocked the Knicks won. I was expecting them to win that series, but I was shocked that Cleveland didn't show much help. The problem for Cleveland was the rebounding. Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein, Julius Randle completely beat up Evan Mobley and Jared Allen on the board. They could not secure an offensive rebound. It was like almost watching Tyson Chandler when he hit the ball back to Carmelo Anthony, going back a little bit. But the rebounding was a big problem for Cleveland. And, they did have C.D. Osman. They brought in Max Strus this season. Cleveland Cavalier fans want the Knicks again. I'm all here for it. Bring it. Bring it on. I'm ready to take them on again because we're going to win again in 6. And we're going to be that team that constantly sends Cleveland home. Totally fine by me. But I know a lot of the people in the NBA, script writers, if you want to call them, Donovan Mitchell comes back to New York. He's supposed to play in New York. I was really shocked that Donovan didn't play. He played hard. He played well. But there's just too much to deal with. You got Emmanuel Quickly. You got RJ. You got Jalen. You got Mitchell Robinson on the boards. It's just too much.
No, again, it big. Not even just the series against Cleveland, right? I also want to give Jalen Brunson his flowers against Miami, but I'm curious to hear how you speak on that series. I know Randall was dealing with the ankle injury and whatnot, and you guys were hurt, like you just said. But when it came to that Cavaliers series, you guys defended well. You kept Donovan Mitchell in check for the most part, made it tough on him, and then you guys look like a men amongst boys when it comes to the glass and all the effort that you guys are making as well. So kudos and big shout out to that series as well. I do think if you guys play again in the future, maybe even this season coming up, I'm with you. I do think you got to beat the Cavaliers again. I do think slipping my mind, Niang would help the Cavaliers when it comes to the outside shooting aspect. Going from a Kuro or Dean Wade or maybe even Mobley.
Oh my God, I'm back. Dean Wade on the floor. Oh my God.
Yeah, going from them and now having Max Strus. I'm not upset that he left Miami. I'm actually glad that he's getting paid and he's playing alongside 2 All-Star guards, or could be 2 All-Star guards, and Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, and a future All-Star if you ask me, and Evan Mobley. Hopefully he can find his little, have a good next 4 years there in Cleveland, I'll say. But
don't get me wrong, Cleveland's good. Cleveland's a solid team. They did bring in. I like the Strus move. I like the Niang move, but I don't think with the Knicks bringing in a Dante DiVincenzo and possibly maybe in the next 3 years, maybe we'll talk about it, a star caliber player like a Joel Embiid, maybe to New York, that they're on the level of New York. I don't think. I've had this, we'll probably talk about it, that the Knicks didn't make many moves this offseason, but sometimes the best move is to not make a move, in my opinion, because this team is good, right? You're gonna get everyone on the team's getting better. Emmanuel quickly's working out. Quentin Grimes has been working out with Penny Hardaway. You got Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart playing for Team USA, both starters. You got Mitchell Robinson working on his free throws. Who says this team can't get better with the current roster?
And I love that you said that because so obviously it's NFL season, right? And I started something last year in Spaces where I called it NBA Wednesdays, where we're talking about NBA literally only for that Wednesday leading up to the NBA season. I did the same exact thing for my first time last week Wednesday, and we went over all 30 teams off season. Like we said, we were going to talk about it, all 30 teams off season, and we gave them a grade. As far as the Knicks, the main thing that I said was they were in a situation to where they didn't do anything outside of Dante, but they have young assets that they drafted in the first round that they can bank on to get better and improve their game quickly. Grimes, even RJ, maybe he can become more efficient. I know he shot 43% from the field last year, so hopefully he can become more efficient. And then I even shed some light on Miles McBride. Comes in, he plays with energy, he's tough, so we'll see in that aspect. But I'm right with you. But talk about RJ Barrett real quick. I seen you made a face when I brought him up, as far as percentage or just him in general. How are you feeling like his career is panning out so far? What's the upside or potential or the level of player that you think he can reach in New York?
The curious case of Rowan Alexander Barrett Jr. This guy drives me crazy. I'm not kidding. It's like one game, we're going to get a 30-point, oh my God, Maple Mamba's back. We got 30 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. And then the next game, in an elimination game in Miami, 1 for 10. The guy, I've said this so many times on Spaces, that there are players that are younger than him that are doing better. There are players that are younger than him that have been an all-star already. There are players than him, even like his age, that are doing better than him. Now, yes, not getting Zion. I cried my eyes out.
Oh
Yes,
wow.
I wanted Zion. I wanted him. He wanted to be in New York. He even left the draft room when the Pelicans got the first pick because he was so upset.
Oh wow.
No, but RJ, he needs to average at least 20 points per game this season on efficient shooting. I want to see at least 44% from the floor. 3-point, maybe we can drift off a little, but I want to see efficient shooting. I'm not saying he has to be an all-star, but he needs to at least be like one of the snubs, be in that conversation. The biggest problem with RJ is that he's never been the centerpiece of the Knicks when he's been like, they're constantly bringing in people ahead of him to take the shot. Yes, he had that big shot against Boston. Yes, I have a picture of it framed in my room. But Jalen Brunson's in front of him. Julius Randle's ahead of him. So he's the third option on this New York Knicks team when he's the third overall pick.
Yeah.
He's been in trade conversations for Paul George,
Yeah.
Zach LaVine, Donovan Mitchell. Like, all these players, they're just building him around because this office did not draft him. It seems from reports from Bagley, Katz, Bondi, any of the Knick reporters, that this office is willing to trade him. We saw that last summer with Donovan Mitchell. They're ready to give him off, and then they had to re-sign him. But I think the consistency issue is the problem for RJ. I want to see consistent shooting and understanding that he can actually be an all-star because, yes, he's not put in the position to succeed with the Knicks, but he has opportunities. I don't want to hear this, like, age argument. Oh, he's only 23. I don't care. Are we going to be saying this when he's 31? Like, I don't get it. Knicks fans are crazy. I call them Rowanists. The Rowanists are absolutely insane. He's him. He's going to be an all-star. He's going to average 30 points. He's not going to average. I'm expecting him to RJ to average at least 21 points. If he averages anything less, I'm going to be disappointed.
Oh wow. Okay, that's a mic drop. That's a lovely RJ Barrett segment. But you made a great point. When you come in, it's more so when you come in and you get drafted, especially or you come in and get drafted to a team of the Knicks, like the Knicks, I'll say, at that time, and who didn't really have a star player or didn't have anybody that was viewed as the best on the team or a guy that we can build around. I'll say that. And you add RJ Barrett, at the third pick at that, and you never really put in a position to say, okay, this whole year is going to be dedicated to you and your growth and your development. It was never that. It was Julius, hey, come on. Jalen, hey, come on. And now even quickly is getting some time to run a whole, for the most part, run a second unit off the bench and that led to him averaging 14 points last year or 15 points. I'm pretty sure he'll be in that same ballpark next year as well. I love Emmanuel quickly. Good
Love
player.
Daniel.
Yeah,
I just
I,
a
I,
lot of people want him to start. I don't think it's gonna happen though.
I, I will be more so. I like what you guys did in the playoffs, and we're going to circle to that series right now. I like what you guys did against us, or I'll say Miami, when you made the shift to Josh Hart coming off the bench to Quentin Grimes starting. I like Quentin Grimes. The way he spaced the floor, he's a big wing. Can try to defend. He obviously can get better on that end, and if he can put the ball on the floor more and get to the basket, I think he can be a complete player. But all in all, let's talk about that series right there. You guys came to play a team that came from the play-in. Obviously, they beat the Bucks in the first round, so they were on a high. You guys beat the Cavs. You were on a high. And it was like the perfect clash to me in the second round. The Heat and Knicks, obviously, that rivalry goes all the way back, to the '90s, early 2000s, I'll say. Alonzo Mourning, Tim Hardaway years. Let's talk about it. How did you feel about that series? First off, I want your thoughts going into this series, and then as the series was going on, game by game, and towards the end, how did you feel?
Yeah, so from a Knicks fan, after we beat Cleveland, we're going to the second round. First time since 2013. Everyone's celebrating, so excited. Knicks fans, including myself, we wanted Miami. We didn't want Milwaukee, but now looking at Miami completely. I think the way that Eric Ulstra has developed undrafted players needs to be written in a book or something, because the way that he treated undrafted players, whether it was any Max Strus or anyone like that, was killer. Jalen Brunson did everything he could. I think he had at least 40 points in the last game. He gave every single ounce of energy that he had. I think no one on the Heat could contain Jalen Brunson. I'm sure you could maybe agree with that, but I think Jalen Brunson was the main offense. Julius Randle struggled. Really, he struggled. RJ just, sometimes just disappears into the background, which I really don't like, because if Julius Randle and RJ Barrett played a little bit better, the outside threes were limited, and we actually rebounded the ball sometimes, I think it could have gone to 7.
Yeah, it should. I, I was lost for words at the level of play of Jalen Brunson. This is a guy that made us shift our defense so many different times throughout that series. The credit, we didn't do it. We do it all the time when it comes to the playoff atmosphere or the playoff vibe. We started with Gabe. We started with Gabe Vincent. We shifted to Jimmy Butler. We even threw Kyle Lowry at him sometimes, and we tried so many. And shout out to Kyle Lowry, helped us win one of those games. We tried so many different lineups, even 2-3 zone. And Jalen Brunson was still able to get his. I mean, this man had 4 30-point games in that series, and I believe he even probably averaged 30 for the whole entire series.
Once him.
It's big shout out to Jalen Brunson. I do think when it comes to making New York consistent playoff threats, I think when you have Jalen Brunson under the helm or the lead guard, I think he's always going to keep you guys in those talks or in that atmosphere, right? I do think now is piece, one more piece to where I would have loved Donovan Mitchell in New York, but I don't know how Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson would have fared with both of those guys being about 6'2", 6'3", or something like
it would probably be one of the smallest backcourts.
Yes, for sure. So I wouldn't know how I would feel about that, but I am ready for another big star to come back and to play under the bright lights, and obviously all the other stars around the league love to play in Madison Square Garden. So that's what I have to say about it. As far as me, when it came to that series, I got shook when Jimmy Butler got hurt, but the way you guys shot that game, where I think Jimmy did not play, it was nuts. It was literally nuts. I think all your guys had probably 25 or more when it comes to Jalen, RJ, and Randall. And I'm like, man, if that's what it takes for them to beat us, I'm not really worried. So obviously, ultimately, we got it done with the play of Caleb and Gabe and Bam and Jimmy and so forth. And credit to the undrafted guys, like we just said. So I appreciate you for that. I'm now going to ask you my question that I want to know. As of September 3rd, Charlotte, or Miss Let's Talk Knicks, what do you feel like is next for the New York Knicks?
The next thing for the Knicks, they have to show stability in the playoffs, get to the playoffs on a consistent basis. I put out a tweet yesterday, or X, whatever, saying what would be a successful season in your eyes. In my eyes, getting to at least the second round to show stability. The next thing for the Knicks is also getting a star on this team to help Jalen Brunson. I don't see Julius Randle on this roster past 3 years. I'm gonna be honest. I really don't. It's just until he can prove that he can get to the actually perform in the playoffs consistently. I need someone else to run with Jalen Brunson. RJ Barrett needs to take that next step. I think the development of RJ needs to be prioritized in the Knicks organization. This guy is the third overall pick. He's playing right now with Canada. He had 16 points today. But I need to see. The Knicks have always been in trade talks for a star.
Yeah.
Paul George this summer, Zach LaVine, Joel Embiid hints. Donovan Mitchell took over 3 months until he was traded on September 1st. But I want to see the Knicks actually trade for someone because obviously with this front office, there's no room for rookies. They punted on the last 2 drafts. They've not drafted. The Knicks are going to have at least their own pick, Dallas picks, and maybe another pick in the first round next year. So that's already 2 first-round picks that you got some chips to deal with. I don't see them drafting. From this front office, the way that they operate, they're going to trade those picks. Because, our Tom Thibodeau seems to not love rookies and loves his vets, which I totally understand. But I think at the same time, when is the right time to cash in? I think it is Joel Embiid. I don't know if Daryl Morey would trade him in the division, especially to a rival New York Knicks team, but you got to pull the trigger on a star. There's been way too many trade talks with the Knicks, and all these teams use the Knicks for leverage. With the James Harden, we saw Woj report that the Clippers and the Knicks. The reason they said the Knicks because everyone knows how many picks the Knicks have. They have 11 first-round picks. It's a lot of capital.
Wow.
So I want to see the Knicks, instead of stockpiling all those picks that you've stockpiled for years, use them and go get Joel Embiid.
I was just about to ask you who out of the stars that's around the league right now or on different teams, how many or what stars would you like to see to come to New York? So what's the ideal trade for you when it comes to getting Joel Embiid to New York? What would you like to see?
Yes, so obviously RJ Barrett's gone. If I'm an opposing GM, he's gone. I'm going to be shocked how many Knicks fans are going to actually still be Knicks fans when RJ's traded.
Oh,
Because
wow.
there's a lot.
Are you serious?
Oh, I'm being dead serious.
Wow.
There are a lot of fans on Knicks Twitter or Knicks X, whatever. I don't care. I'm going to say it Twitter because I'm used to it. A lot of fans are big RJ supporters, and I think that if RJ were to be traded, they would move teams. A lot of them.
Barrett?
Yeah, if RJ Barrett was traded to Philadelphia, they'd become 76ers fans. Don't be surprised when it happens. But if he'll trade, you're going to have to give up RJ Barrett. You're going to have to give up Emmanuel Quickley. You're going to have to give up Mitchell Robinson. You're going to have to give up your own pick, the Dallas pick, and the Milwaukee first-round pick, maybe the Washington pick, but that's top 14 protected, so it doesn't have much value, but you're going to give up a good sum of first-round picks. But I think where the conversation really stalls for the Knicks is that they love Quentin Grimes, and they will not give him up.
Yeah.
We saw that last summer with Donovan Mitchell. That's what broke down talks.
Yeah.
And the office, we kind of make fun of them, but we call him Mr. Untouchable because the Knicks office will not trade him.
Yeah.
I think that's where it broke down in the Paul George trade. And, the Knicks were in talks with the Clippers this summer, but Paul George is going to want a $220 million contract extension, and he's pretty old. Why would the Knicks do that? Doesn't make a lot of sense. But I think that the ideal trade is keeping Quentin Grimes, prioritizing him. But if anyone that thinks that in a star trade you can conserve and keep RJ Barrett, I don't see that happening. But if you take the other way, if a team is interested maybe in a rebuild and taking Julius Randle, maybe you could keep RJ Barrett and trade Julius Randle instead. So an ideal trade, really, I would love to keep RJ, but if it's a make or break for Joel Embiid, I'm going to trade him for Joel Embiid. It's the former MVP. And imagine Jalen Brunson and Joel Embiid. That's an East contender to me. Like, you got Joel Embiid, Jalen Brunson, and you got some other pieces. Dante, Josh, you still have there. The reason the Knicks re-signed them for so long is because you gotta replace people like an Emmanuel Quickley. You gotta replace an RJ Barrett. So we'll see what happens.
you left me with something. Um, you left me with something. Oof. Joel Embiid and Jalen Brunson will be East contenders. So let's. I want to circle on that real quick before we get out of here today. Again, thank you so much for coming on. If you're this far into the episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Facts and Stats on YouTube, and also check out Let's Talk Knicks on Twitter. You said Jalen Brunson and Joel Embiid will be contenders in the East for some time. Let's talk. You want stability, and then you also want a star player. But then the star player you want is Joel Embiid, who has not got out of the second round. But you think that Joel Embiid and Jalen Brunson can potentially make you guys final contenders? I want to say that.
Yes. Yes.
You want to elaborate a little bit for me on that?
Jalen Brunson
this is a guy. This is a guy in Embiid. I'm sorry for cutting you off. This is a guy in Embiid.
New York is a different animal than he is in Philadelphia. He has no help in Philadelphia. Every time you got Jimmy Butler leaving, Ben Simmons leaving, James Harden's on his way out, Tyrese Maxey's not re-signed. What help does Joel Embiid have in Philadelphia when he's watching James Harden chuck shots all the time, playing point guard when he should be a shooting guard, in my opinion? But I understand the injury concern, but this is the only chance, the real chance, that the Knicks get a star in New York. But there's a debate. Do the Knicks have a star on their team already? I think they do. I think Jalen Brunson's one of the top I think Jalen Brunson's one of the top point guards in not even just the East, in the NBA. And I think he'll be an all-star this season. Fingers crossed. But Joel Embiid takes this team to a new level.
Okay. Joel Embiid takes the Knicks to a new level and make you guys final contenders. Do you think
Yes.
that? Do you say you guys get Joel Embiid
Okay.
hypothetically even this offseason, right? And you do the trade that you do. Do you think that you guys can beat Boston, Milwaukee, or maybe even Miami if they land Damian Lillard?
Depends how far Joel's injuries hold up.
If he holds up
I think that they could take it to 6 or 7 games.
against who? All three of those teams?
The Knicks were amazing versus Boston in the regular season. Yes, it is the regular season, but I think that they could be up there with any team in the East. If you get Joel Embiid on this team, I'm telling you, I'm gonna literally clip this in 2 years and be like, I told you they're gonna be finals contenders if literally Joel Embiid is on this team. But yeah, I think Jalen Brunson just needs a new running mate, and I think that they could take a Boston, they could take a Milwaukee. I really truly do believe that with the right pieces in place. Obviously, there would need to be corresponding moves when you bring a Joel Embiid, because there's going to be obvious holes.
Right.
You're probably going to have a starting lineup of Jalen Brunson. You'd put Quentin Grimes probably in the shooting guard spot. Josh Hart would start,
Yeah.
Julius Randle, and then Joel Embiid.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I'm with you. I appreciate you for coming on. Most importantly, thank you so much. Anything else you want to say to close it out?
Nope, just if you want more Knicks content, please feel free to follow at Let's Talk Knicks _. The underscore is very important, at Let's Talk Knicks _. And then if you're looking for like post-game coverage, live spaces, we have spaces every single day at Knicks Spaces. It's at Knicks Spaces on Twitter or X. But feel free to follow us and at Knicks Spaces for great Knicks content.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a great day today.
You too.